Alright, what up guys? Jared bringing another video here for you. My boy Rupp. We coach here at City College, and so today we're going to talk to you about block starts. This is a thing I see people kind of, I don't think they really understand why they're even using the blocks, and so I really wanted to go over what they're for, what purpose they serve, and how you really use them to get the most out of what you're trying to do. So I got a set of blocks here, and I'm going to show you guys how I used to use the blocks. And so, a couple of things. First off, when you put your blocks down, guys, make sure you're always, they have spikes on the bottom. Make sure you're always putting your blocks down and standing on top of them once you get them to where you want them to go. Because we've had kids on our team that don't push the blocks down and then they don't get a block holder. Sometimes meets will let you, sometimes they won't. And then you'll go out of the blocks and they fly back behind you, and guess what? They're not restarting the race for you. So that's the first tip, okay? You gotta make sure you put your blocks down and step on them. Next thing is the height of these things, okay? What I like to do is put the front one a little bit lower and the back one a little bit higher. As far as the angles goes, whatever's comfortable for you guys, doesn't really matter. For me, I like to have the front one about 50 to 55 degrees. Sometimes they have angles on here and sometimes they don't. The back one, I just put a little bit higher than that, okay? Next thing is distance from the starting line, okay? You really don't want to be bunching the starting line because a bunch of things happen. Number one, you can't get your butt up high enough to be in a good position to drive out of the blocks. Number two, you can't have your hands on the lines, okay? So these lines here, technically you can get disqualified if your hands are touching the line, so you always want to leave yourself enough space. I mean, the difference between this and this shouldn't be why you win or lose. You know what I mean? So just be smart about it, guys, okay? Now, let me just explain, I missed it. Let me just explain what the blocks are actually for, okay? The reason we use blocks, guys, is because it puts you in a drive position, and Rupp would probably be a good one to talk a little bit about this. That's how you're getting your acceleration into the race, okay? That's the difference between starting here and standing and starting. You're not at angles where you're going to be using your max potential of your muscles, basically. And so when you're in the blocks and you're loaded in there and you got these good angles going, and Rupp will talk about this probably in a minute, like, the whole point is to allow you to accelerate more efficiently and faster, okay? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so come on over here. So the first angle we want to set up is this lead leg, all right? So when he gets down and he gets into a set position, all right, go ahead, it's gonna be painful for a little bit. So when he gets in a set position, this foot should be right under the hip, all right? Now, you can relax. So, yeah, so we're adjusting a little bit, all right? But like what Coach Camp likes to say is, with the shorter races, like the 100 meters or the 200, he's kind of closer to the line, a little bit more scrunched, all right? You're a little bit more scrunched, all right? If you're running a 400 or something like that, your blocks are probably a little bit more back, a little bit more comfortable, all right? So, so the main thing is getting this foot under the hip so that you create a good 90-degree angle right there, and basically coming out of the blocks at an angle, not so much popping up and then running, okay? So you want to hold a really, almost an uncomfortable angle coming out of the blocks. You're almost going to be tripping on each step, all right? And also coming out of the blocks, you want to be pushing with both of these feet coming out. So you want to not just pushing off of one foot, you want to be pushing off of both feet jumping out of these blocks, all right? So I don't know if you can think about a full squat. If someone's in the weight room and they're doing full squats and they're all the way down here, right? And they're coming all the way up, would you be able to push more weight, you know, from this position, or push more weight from this position, all right? That's a quarter squat. So what you don't want to be all the way back, right? You're not going to be so powerful there. You want to have a good 90-degree angle or more. If you're in the 400, maybe a touch more, so that you can have a lot of power coming out at a really good angle. And then from there,
well, one thing that he touched on that I think a lot of people don't understand, like I said earlier, the whole point why we're using blocks is to generate speed faster and to be in a more efficient position. So a lot of people I see make the mistake, once they get in the blocks, they're set up, everything looks good, and then once they go out of the blocks, they just step out of the blocks. It's like, that's not why we're using them. the whole point they're here is so that you jump out of the blocks. You should be pushing off, and this is what you just said, both of these feet. It's not just all on your front foot, it's on both of them. So and I'll just show you a little exaggeration.
So he's pushing back.
Yeah.
Back, not so much down.
Yeah, and on both of my feet, so that when I come up like this, and I come out, I'm jumping out of the blocks. So I'm pushing off both of my feet to generate that speed, okay? Now, that's setting your blocks up. Here's another thing too. The distance between these increases with the further distance of the race. So just like if you're running a 100-meter dash, this is exaggerated. You'd be closer to the line and these would be closer to each other, right? And then as you run a 200, a 400, and then that's pretty much all you're gonna be using them for, you're gonna be sliding this back and you're gonna be probably sliding these back too, because you're not generating as much force right away because you're not running all out like you would be in a 100 or maybe even a 200, okay? So, but honestly, whatever's comfortable for you guys, I like my blocks a little bit closer together because I am pushing off both my feet. If that's something you're not comfortable with yet, then having them a little bit further apart, which might be a little bit better for you. So,
getting into the blocks, what I like to explain, getting into the blocks. So what you want to do is have your routine, all right? So you want to try to do the same thing that you do in practice. You want to do it in the meet. So people jump, people stretch, people do whatever they want to do. I don't know what Coach Camp used to do, but I usually just kind of gave a good stretch, and I get down in front of my blocks. I get all the way down on all fours and imagine that I'm a coil spring. So I want to imagine that I'm a coil spring, right? So I'm a coil spring, right? And I'm gonna really make sure these things are in there, and I'm gonna smash my coil spring all the way down. So I'm smashing myself, pretending that I'm potentially gonna use all this energy to spring out. All right, so I'm coming down, and I get my hands down here, and I feel like I'm just this coil spring ready to just pop out. All right, so I know these blocks aren't really set for me right now, but what I usually like to do is have my front knee right about where the line is. All right, so if I have both of these down here, have my front knee just behind the line. That's kind of like where I like to get it. All right, so then when I sit back, that knee lifts up. All right, but if I were to put it down, it's pretty much on the line. All right, and then like Coach said, you don't want to be pushing it too much on the line. You just want to be nice and comfortable and relaxed. Okay, so the wider you have your hands, the lower your head's going to be, the lower your shoulders going to be. The more narrow you have your hands, the higher your upper half is going to be. All right, so you got to find that happy medium of what you want. All right, I was always telling you some of the really strong sprinters, really muscular strong sprinters can go really wide because they want to stay really low because they generate a lot of force so that they can stay lower for longer in a driving phase. All right, if you're maybe like a 400 runner, you'd probably be a little bit higher because you're not really generating all that force right away from the start. But you do still want to go all out, you know. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's, you know, it's a little bit different for each race.
So now that we showed you how to set up your blocks, why you're using your blocks and stuff like that, the last thing you really want to talk about is the commands and what you should be doing during those commands. So when I'm getting into my blocks and they give your, runners on your marks, and you come down like Rupp just said, you have your routine, whatever you do, and you get into your blocks. After the announcer says set, where you come up, you can't do any movements that are forward at all. So if they say set and I come up like this and I do that, I can get disqualified. Okay? It's same thing with like a twitch or anything you do. Like after they say set, you can't do anything that is a motion of moving, basically. Because you'll get disqualified, and especially if you had a big meet.
I was gonna say, she said, especially if you're at a big meet. That depends on what meet. If you're obviously at a high school meet or a junior college meet or something, and you kind of have a little bit. Sometimes they won't call it, but if you're at a big meet where you all want to be at, they'll call it for sure. So it depends on what meet, but they're supposed to call it, but they usually don't a whole lot.
Yeah, and the thing is, guys, don't try to jump the gun. I've ran so many races throughout my college career. I ran track for 10 years, and I never once false started or even came close to false starting. And when you're trying to guess at races, and you guess wrong, it can really ruin your race. Because you're like, maybe you're twitching and they don't call it, and then you're coming back as the gun goes off, and if it's 100 meters, you just lost the race, okay? And so you're way better to come in there and just sit there and just react, okay? And that's what we do. We react to the gun. We don't anticipate, and we don't try to guess or do any of that crap. All we do is we get in, we let our mind go completely clear, and we just take a deep breath, and then we come up and we just wait. And we're just ready to fire out, and that's it. So you never anticipate the gun. You don't listen to the starter and listen to his count. When you see like the world-class athletes in the Olympics and stuff where they're trying to anticipate the gun, I mean, we're talking, those guys are getting every last ounce of like athletic ability out of their bodies. And unless you're on that level, it's not worth it, okay? So that's why they're changing the rules with how it works and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, just react to the gun.
Let's see, so we went over setting them up, routine, coming out of them. All right, arms, all right?
Yeah.
So something I like to say that, you know, the bigger arms that you can use, all right? So if I'm coming out of this and I'm really having big arms, all right? That's almost countering my weight so that I can stay lower. All right, that's the whole point of having these so you can push back, is so that you can come out at a really low angle so you can really get a good position to drive. Using the big muscles, your glutes, your quads, and your calves to go forward, all right? I'm not gonna get forward by pulling, all right? So coming out of here, sorry, I kind of went off subject there. So arms, all right, if I'm gonna go up here, I wanna have big arms, all right, so that I can stay at a really low angle, all right? That's kind of the whole point of having big arms. If you come out of here with Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, all right, you have no choice but to have to pop up and start running, because you're just not countering yourself with your arms. So that's the whole point. Blocks, coming out at a really low angle so that you can really get going, all right? Push behind you with your big muscles to run.
The easiest way to tell how advanced a runner is when I watch them is when they come out of the blocks, do they stand straight up, or are they actually driving out of the blocks? Because it takes time to learn, and it also takes trusting yourself and your power. One of the things I always tell my athletes, like after all this stuff, at the end of the day, your blocks are set up and you're ready to go. It should feel like you're almost falling downhill. Like almost like you're gonna fall on your face.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I tell my athletes. Okay, remember, you know, what's the one thing you're thinking about? Fall forward, you know? And so I'll show you a block start here just so you can see what it looks like. And maybe I'll put it in slow motion for you. Hopefully it's not too horrible. So after I came in, get down, keep my hands off the line.
So he's on the line now, and he's gonna have just a little bit of a forward lean, not too much, so that when he's at set, he doesn't have to start leaning forward. He already has that in it. All right. So he's forward. I'm gonna call out here. Set. Good. You're still going? So nice and easy, nice and relaxed. He wasn't trying to get faster with his face and with his neck, all right? It's nice and easy, nice and relaxed. Boom. Then the faster you move your arms, the faster your feet are gonna move, all right? You wanna use the muscles that push you forward. You don't wanna use every other muscle that you don't need, like your cheeks and your neck and everything, okay? What else? What do we got?
Well, another thing that I just thought of while I was doing it, a lot of people ask me, hey, how big should my first step be, you know? Well, the answer to that is it depends. It depends what race you're running, it depends how strong you are, and it depends how long your legs are. That's something I never ever think about, okay? The only thing I'm thinking about when I come out of the blocks is generate as much speed forward as I possibly can, okay? So I'm not thinking about, you know, how high's my butt, what are my angles like, where am I putting my feet? I'm just thinking get out of the blocks and run, okay? That's all I'm thinking about, okay? But
to get more technical, from my perspective, I like to get technical. He likes to just kind of feel it and do it right. He does it very correctly. But So there's an angle right here. This is your hip angle, all right? Your knee, all right? This is your ankle. What I like to tell my athletes is you wanna create such an angle where your shoulders, your hips, your knee, and your ankle are all in a straight line, all right? You might see that when he slow-mos this a little bit. You know. But so when he gets up the set and then he goes, he wants to fully extend this into a straight line, angled at such a good angle that if he were to go any further, he'd have to put his arms out and he'll fall on his face.
And that will determine where your step is going to be. Okay, that's why we don't tell you how far to step. Okay,
right. And another reason, another thing about your step is when you're coming out of the blocks, you're not doing a full hill recovery. All right, so you're coming out of this thing.
Yep.
All right, you're not. And if you can't see on the other side, all right. So if on the other side of my back leg, you're not coming out of here and trying to do a full hill recovery out of this thing. All right, your steps are going to be. Your steps are going to be a little bit lower and driving. So your knees are going to be a little bit lower, driving, a little bit lower than driving. All right, only on your first few steps, because you don't want to come out of this thing trying to have a full hill recovery while you're at this crazy angle. It just doesn't work. All right, so your knee, you're basically dragging your toe for just a couple steps. All right, coming out of the blocks, because having a full, you want to imagine it like bicycle gears. All right. You have that really small gear, you want to hit that gear first, then switch to your next gear later, your next gear later, your next gear later. You don't want to start on a big looping gear on coming straight out of the blocks. So make sure that that small gear is what you're thinking coming out of the blocks. Boom, 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 instead of boom, boom. That's not, triple jump or long jump or anything like that. So.
Well, I think that's about as long-winded as you can get. Talk about blocks. It's cool because I'm a little bit more feeling, and like you said, he's a little bit more technical, so it's nice to do these together. But there you go. Main points to bring away from this: set up your blocks, be in a good position, react to the gun, and make sure you're keeping your hands off the line and stuff like that. You don't want to even be worrying about things that aren't aren't just racing. Okay, and so
And the last thing I think, you touched on it, is after you have all of that, that's what you want to do in practice. Practice all that, worry about everything, think about everything, so that it becomes automatic. And then when you're in a meet, like Coach did when he was running, cleared it all out. All of it's, you're not thinking about anything except for winning the race. You're trying to win the race. So that should be the only thing in your head when you're at a meet, ready to compete. So you don't have to go through all the checklists, because it's already automatic because you've already done it so many times.
So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed. Coach Campisi, Coach Rupp. Catch you guys soon.